Now I am extremely privileged to request Honorable Sri Justice Joy Mallya Bagchiji to address the gathering. With huge round of applause.
Justice Venkatramana, my esteemed brother, and the Honorable Administrative Judge of the District of Prakasam, the District Judge and the Chairman of the District Legal Services Authority, Srimati P. Venkata Jyotirmayi, who is, if I may share, the real live wire and the inspiration for this program. The police personnel, Mr. Pala Raju, DIG Technicals, and the Superintendent of Police, Mr. Kaushik, the District Collector and the District Magistrate, Dr. Pola Bhaskar, the Honorable Resource Persons. It was a privilege hearing both of you. Sunita Madam from Prajwala and Mr. Dhananjay ji from Bachpan Bachao Andolan. My brothers and sisters of the District Judiciary, the police personnel, particularly the Mahila police force who are present here in great number, the President of the Bar Association, my congratulations in advance for the Silver Jubilee which is in waiting, the members of the bar, the young boys and girls who have assembled in large numbers, the legal volunteers, and all these stakeholders who make the effort of the Legal Services Authority a reality. Namaskaram to all of you. It is for you we exist, and it is for you we live and survive. It was, as I said, the brainchild of the District Legal Services Authority Chairman and District Judge to select her district as the first step in our sensitization exercise throughout the state of Andhra Pradesh. All the resource persons, the honorable judges, the police personnel agreed in one thing. The laws are there, but where are the results? We have brilliant laws, but very sad implementation. In doing so, and in thinking, I was reminded of a remark of one of the greatest sons of India, Swami Vivekananda. Swamiji said that for the nation to have complete freedom and well-being, the women have to be completely free. The great saint wondered and said, how can a bird fly with one wing? Similarly, how can a nation rise only with half of its population, namely men? It is, and perhaps, the day where every woman feels that she is as empowered as the man, that true equality in India, which our founding fathers made the fulcrum and the basic of the preamble of our constitution, will be achieved in reality. And how can that be achieved? Can't be achieved only by laws. Can't be achieved through police force. Can't be achieved through prosecution, punishment, and jail. Freedom, as Swamiji said, is not protection. freedom does not mean that a woman is care of the father, then the husband, and then the son. Freedom means agency, the freedom to choose, the freedom to be free, the freedom to stand up and say, I want this, and this is my life. That is where true freedom lies. And to achieve that, we need to have a sensitization, not in law, but in society. Our history of legislation has been a history of mishaps. When you see the evolution of the laws relating to women, particularly relating to violence on women, you find that it has been the incidence of ignominy in the Indian society which had led to the generations of amendments and laws. When did section 304B and 498A get promulgated? When did the evidentiary law reverse burden under 113B? It was only after the Mathura gang rape case. 114A was brought in, that consent of a woman when she is raped is to be presumed. It was thereafter in Nirbhaya incident. Again, the conscience of the patriarchal nation was shocked. And then the nation went back to the drawing board, made laws. POCSO came into being, which Dhananjaya ji commented as one of the strong bulwarks of Indian legislation. Laws relating to rape and sexual assault was again revisited. But friends, why I am taking you through this lecture of law? We are not here to learn law, but to see how the history of law has been a history of abuse. Each and every time a woman has been abused, each and every time a woman has lost her dignity, each and every time we have failed to give true freedom to the woman, not protection. Friends, not protection but freedom. We have to go back in ignominy, in abject acceptance of failure, and make stronger laws. What did these stronger laws make? These stronger laws prescribed larger and more stricter punishments. They changed the complexion of prosecution by saying that the prosecutor need not prove. One who is accused will prove ABCD things. Or in other words, the onus of proof was shifted and the ambit of the offense was enlarged. Did it result in reduction of crime? My friends will say NCRB report does not say so. NCRB report says criminal offenses, particularly sex offenses, skyrocketing. Every year it is growing. So the newer laws have created more criminals but not reduced crime. Crime has increased, criminals have increased. It has not at all achieved the idea which is necessary to achieve to eradicate crime. That is, change the mindset of the people from the patriarchal idea of society, where the woman is considered as a liability to the father to whom he is born, a commodity for trade to the matrimonial family to whom she is married in lieu of dowry, and finally a burden to the son on whom she is supposed to have given birth to. Now, if this patriarchal idea of liability vis-a-vis protection and thereby preservation is eradicated, it is not going to have its impact. We have been for the last 2 hours discussing why such a wonderful legal system is not being implemented. The answer is, again, if you go back to the NCRB records, the worst enemies of the woman, the predators of the woman, are her relations and her men of confidence. 97 to 98% of rape cases registered in India are against family members, relations, or friends. The idea of a stranger lurking in the back alleys, dark alleys, jumping and predating on the woman is unknown. Her biggest and the most vulnerable place in society is supposed to be the place of comfort, namely home. The female embryo which is aborted is not aborted by a stranger, is aborted by a presumptive father or a family to whom she is to be born. The girl child who suffers from malnutrition is not starved because there was less of resources, but the more resource went to the boy child. The boy child in the family is given better education than the girl child. This is where the freedom of the girl comes. Can we assure that every young girl, every young child, Mr. Dhananjaya, who is born in India can question her parents and say, why can't I go to the better school in which my brother is going? Why, when in higher education the girl child is said that your brother can go, there is no problem, but if we send you to a better college and you are in a hostel, you may be subjected to sexual assault or harassment? The girl cannot choose. The female embryo could not choose when she was aborted. The baby girl cannot choose when the single roti is not divided into two between the brother and the sister and the brother is given the whole. The girl cannot choose when, as a teenager, she is said, your brother can go to a late night movie, but you cannot with your friends because you will be pestered. Friends, please reflect for a moment. And this is from all strata of society. It is useless to assemble here and talk of sensitization unless we sensitize our own minds. And therefore, I say, the first step of sensitization of our laws, our schemes in NALSA should begin from ourselves. We should sensitize ourselves. We should help to sensitize our friends, our colleagues, and try to create the first freedom to oppose from our own limited, humble ways. That should come. Today, this year, the motto in the United Nations International Women Day was freedom to challenge, the option to challenge. So we should learn to question. We should learn to question whenever our sense of justice, our sense of fairness is affected. And when our sense of justice and fairness is affected from the gender point of view, every woman, every girl, every person has the right, if not, I would go a step ahead to say a duty to challenge and say, this is not right. We may succeed, we may not succeed today, but we will create the steps, the little steps by which tomorrow we may succeed. How many of us could even imagine that there will be the courts who would come to our aid and allow that women should have same respect and position in the army. How many of us could imagine that we would have a situation where we would create and we would strive to have a right-based system where equality for women would be given precedence over all. This is where the little steps of protest which took place 100 years ago against dowry have created the laws of dowry. Little steps of protest against sati created the law of sati in a country which was ruled by foreigners. So these social protests, the protests made at the level of the family, at the level of the village, at the level of the taluka, and at every strata of society crystallizes in law. And from there the implementation of law is affected. The other aspect which has been very succinctly put forward by all the speakers is the synergy of stakeholders. We need to understand the problems of trafficking, the problem of cyber pornography, the problem of child labor are not singular offenses. They are problems which have organized crime syndicates running not only in the country, throughout the world. Sunita madam pointed out about human trafficking. It is a $300 trillion industry throughout the world. Today, the state of Andhra Pradesh should be lauded in creating the cyber Kavach or the Disha Kavach. But friends, the Disha Kavach is a single drop in a big ocean. The entire human trafficking crime is not on the streets. It is not the singular boy or the girl who is being lured in. It is run over the internet, particularly the dark net. The monies are transacted across international borders, not in currencies but bitcoins. And this is the extent of the crime. We need a central investigating agency, like the National Investigating Agency against crimes against the nation's integrity and sovereignty. We need a national investigating agency cutting across boundaries, cutting across our states, and creating a nodal body for investigation. The efforts of these agencies, particularly Bachpan Bachao Andolan, has been wonderful. We have created the child missing line throughout India. Wherever one child is missing anywhere in India, the portal is reported across every state. Why I say this is, I have come from a state where innumerable girls, particularly child, have been trafficked across the country, particularly to the northern states and the southern states. The difficulty of prosecution and investigation has been that the FIRs are registered in some village in Bengal or in some village in Jharkhand, and the recovery takes place in Mumbai or in Gurgaon. The witnesses are not brought. The trials which Mr. Dhananjaya pointed out end in acquittal. The reasons are lack of synergy between the investigating agencies in the two states. Now, whenever there is an interstate trafficking, it should be considered to be a federal offense, an offense which will require an investigation by a central agency. These are certain things which need to be looked into for the purpose of more effective prosecutions. Finally, with regard to rehabilitation, compensation, I would suggest this is where our paralegal volunteers, and there madam suggested that the paralegal volunteers, particularly when we are going to the heart of every Telugu in the state of Andhra Pradesh, by translating the Nalsa song in Telugu, the Nalsa book and its schemes into Telugu, to describe them in English as paralegal volunteer is an anachronism. Excuse me, I have not learned that much Telugu to address you in Telugu. I would try to do it in later occasions. But I would say a paralegal volunteer should be a Nyaya Sahayika. Should be a Nyaya Sahayika instead of being a paralegal volunteer, which sounds a bit official. Paralegal, and the second thing about paralegal volunteers is the best way of rehabilitation, reintegration, in my estimation, is to use the victims of the crimes as the paralegal volunteers. The victims of yesterday should be the paralegal volunteers of today. That is the way they will show the path to other victims that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And just being a victim, you are not vulnerable, you are not protected, you are not preserved, but you have become a weapon to challenge, fight, and destroy the evil that made you a victim. And the best way to do it, to use them as paralegal volunteers. I will conclude by commenting on the compensation schemes. Compensation schemes have been implemented. Monies are being paid in various ways. There may be some slow movement in certain districts. In others, they are good. But the difficulty with the interim compensation or compensation system is, it is, again, like all of us, trying to make our best in a bubble. The wonderful role played by the NGOs, the fantastic efforts of the police for prosecution, our struggles in judiciary are all in bubbles, but we do not synergize. What happens to a victim of rape or victim of trafficking, where the trafficker is his own father and the compensation is paid? 60% of the compensation goes for the father's drink and other immoral activities. We should ensure that a victim is not only given monetary compensation, but is given counseling, psychological help, and witness protection alongside. And that is where our role comes. Because we have moved from our ivory towers. We are no longer insouciant adjudicators, indifferent adjudicators who just stand up as a referee and say goal or no goal. But we are proactive people who are trying to reach out to injustice. There, as judges, if we can see that whenever from the DLSA end or from the end of the POCSO courts or the special courts, whenever a victim is given interim compensation, please call upon the police to give a report, about witness protection of that victim. Request, if the victim is a child, request the CWC to ensure a proper rehabilitation scheme for the child victim. And if the victim is not a child, please request the Ministry of Women and Child Development. Every state has that ministry, for the purpose of rehabilitation, reintegration, and, as Madam pointed out, skills, self-employment skill for self-improvement skills. Without that, the purpose of rehabilitation, purpose of reintegration in monetary terms will become illusory, and at most cases will remain misused. Thank you for bearing with me, and I feel that this is just a beginning. As the Executive Chairman of the Legal Services Authority in the state, I would call upon everyone that let us stand up as a body. Let us fight a common enemy, not from the angle of your fight and my fight. It is our fight to survive and uphold the rights enshrined in the Constitution. Jai Hind. Thank you.